The night was heavy with rain, the kind that blurred city lights and made every sound feel distant, almost lonely. Ethan Ward pulled his old pickup to the side of the road, wiping the fog from his windshield as the wipers struggled to keep up. He had just finished a double shift at the auto shop, his hands still stained with grease and his back aching from hours of labor. Being a single dad wasn't easy, but he didn't complain. Every drop of sweat he shed was for his 7-year-old son, Noah, the only bright thing that had kept him going since his wife passed away 3 years ago. He was exhausted, hungry, and ready to get home to the tiny apartment where leftover soup and his boys' laughter waited. But fate had other plans that night. As he drove slowly through the storm, his headlights caught something small and pale on the side of the road. At first, he thought it was a dog. But when the shape moved, when tiny hands came up to shield its face from the rain, Ethan's heart dropped. He slammed the brakes, jumped out into the downpour, and ran forward. There, drenched and shivering, stood a little girl, maybe 6 years old, wearing a torn white dress, her hair clinging to her face, her bare feet caked with mud. She looked terrified, like a bird that had flown into a world too cruel. "Hey, hey," Ethan crouched beside her, his voice gentle, trying not to scare her. "Sweetheart, are you okay? Where's your mom and dad?" The girl just shook her head, her lips trembling, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. Ethan noticed she was holding something in her small hand, a silver bracelet with an engraving, though the rain made it hard to read. He took off his jacket, wrapped it around her shoulders, and picked her up carefully. "You're freezing," he murmured. "Let's get you warm, all right?" The girl didn't resist. She rested her head against his chest, whispering something so soft he could barely hear it. It sounded like a name, Lila. He drove straight home, glancing at her in the rearview mirror, wondering who she was, how she ended up alone in the storm. Noah was half asleep on the couch when Ethan burst through the door, carrying the girl in his arms. "Dad?" Noah asked, rubbing his eyes. "Who's that?" "I don't know, buddy," Ethan said, setting her down on the couch. She was out there all alone. He grabbed a towel and wrapped it around her, then set a pot of soup on the stove. The girl's eyes darted around the small apartment, as if she'd never seen something so simple. Ethan noticed her hands, delicate, manicured, and her dress, though torn, was clearly expensive. "Where did you come from, sweetheart?" he asked again softly, kneeling down in front of her. "Can you tell me your name?" She hesitated, clutching the bracelet tight. "Lila," she finally whispered. "Lila what?" Ethan asked. But she just shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "I don't remember." Ethan's chest tightened. He knew the signs: trauma, shock, fear. Someone had hurt this child, or something terrible had happened. He didn't press her anymore. After she ate and warmed up, he let her sleep on the couch, while Noah insisted on sleeping on the floor beside her, guarding her like a little brother. That night, as Ethan watched the two of them sleep, he couldn't shake the feeling that this girl had come into his life for a reason. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the blinds, soft and golden after the violent storm. Lila woke up to the smell of pancakes. "Good morning," Ethan said with a small smile. "You like pancakes?" She nodded shyly. Noah, already dressed for school, grinned. "Dad makes the best pancakes in the world," he bragged. Lila smiled a little, the first time Ethan had seen it. It lit up her whole face, and for a moment, she looked like any normal child. But as she reached for the syrup, Ethan noticed the bracelet again. He wiped it gently with a cloth. The engraving became clearer now: LM, for my little miracle. It didn't sound like a cheap trinket. He knew fine jewelry when he saw it. He worked on enough luxury cars to recognize something from that world. He decided to take her to the police station after dropping Noah off at school. But as he drove, Lila clung to him in fear whenever they passed flashing lights or sirens. "No police," she whispered, shaking her head violently. Please. They'll take me back. Take you back where? Ethan asked gently, pulling over. Her small face went pale, her lips quivering. To him, she said, then covered her mouth like she'd said something forbidden. Ethan's gut twisted. Whoever him was, she was terrified. He couldn't bring himself to leave her with strangers. All right, he said finally. No police. You can stay with me for a while. Just until we figure this out. She nodded, relief washing over her face. Over the next few days, Lila slowly came out of her shell. She and Noah became inseparable, playing games, drawing, building blanket forts in the living room. Her laughter filled the small apartment like sunlight through clouds. Ethan began to feel something strange in his chest, a warmth he hadn't felt since his wife died. But behind every giggle, there was still a shadow in her eyes. Sometimes she'd wake up crying, whispering, "Don't let him find me." Ethan comforted her every time, but he knew the truth was catching up. One evening, while fixing a client's luxury car in his workshop, something caught his eye, a news broadcast playing on the small TV in the corner. The reporter's voice froze him. Breaking news: billionaire philanthropist Madeline Moore is pleading for the return of her missing daughter, Lila Moore, who disappeared 3 days ago from her family estate. Authorities believe she may have been abducted. Ethan dropped the wrench in his hand. The screen showed a photo, the same eyes, the same dimpled smile, the same silver bracelet glinting on her wrist. It was her. Lila. He stood there frozen, his mind spinning. A billionaire's daughter? Missing? And she was sleeping on his couch right now? His heart raced as he turned off the TV. Part of him wanted to drive straight to the mansion, return her, and end this madness. But then he remembered her fear, her trembling voice, the way she'd begged, "Don't let him find me." What if the truth was darker than the headlines? What if she had run away for a reason? That night, as the rain started again, Ethan sat by the window, unable to sleep. He looked at Lila curled up beside Noah and whispered to himself, "What am I supposed to do, God? Do I protect her, or send her back?" The decision tore him apart. The next morning, while he prepared breakfast, there was a knock on the door. A sharp, urgent knock. He opened it, and froze. Standing there was a woman in a long black coat, her hair perfectly styled, her eyes red from sleeplessness but blazing with determination. Behind her, 2 men in suits waited silently. "Are you Ethan Ward?" she asked, her voice trembling with both authority and desperation. Ethan nodded slowly. "Yes. Who are you?" She took a step forward, her gaze sweeping the room, and landing on Lila, who stood behind him clutching Noah's hand. The woman's breath caught. "Lila," she whispered, tears spilling instantly. Lila's eyes widened, not in joy, but in fear. She hid behind Ethan, shaking her head. "No. Don't let her take me." Ethan turned, shocked. "Lila, she's not my mom," the little girl screamed, voice breaking. The room fell silent. The woman's face paled, her composure cracking. "Lila, it's me, baby," she whispered, stepping closer, but the girl backed away. Ethan stood between them, his heart pounding. Something was very wrong here. The woman's voice wavered as she looked at Ethan. "Please. I need to talk to you. Alone." Ethan hesitated but nodded. He led her outside, the rain beginning to drizzle again. She looked out over the street, clutching her chest. "I'm Madeline Moore," she said quietly. "And that little girl, she's my daughter. She's all I have left." Ethan nodded slowly. "I saw the news. But she's terrified of you." "Why?" Madeline's eyes filled with tears. "Because, she doesn't remember. And if what I think is true, someone made sure she wouldn't." She handed him a photo, Lila in a garden, smiling with a man beside her. But the man's face made Ethan's blood run cold. It was the same man whose name he'd seen on the news, Victor Hale, Madeline's business partner. He took her, Madeline whispered. He wanted control of my company. Lila is the heir. He knew taking her would break me. Ethan swallowed hard. So, she escaped? Madeline nodded. I think so. But she doesn't trust anyone anymore. She looked at him, pleading. Please. Let me take her home. I can protect her. Ethan hesitated, looking through the window where Lila stood watching them, her small hand pressed to the glass. She doesn't want to go, he said softly.